Alright, so today I'm going to get some traits from all of you. So as you can see on the board, up here at the top, I got all the male students in the class listed, and below I have all the females listed in our class. So I want to take a little poll here. So who here has any color but brown? If you don't have brown eyes, can you raise your hand, please?
Yeah.
Alright, so I got David, Paige, Sunny, Melissa, Dr. Burrows, and who here has brown eyes? So following these directions on the board, as you can see at the top, it says to go to 2 no matter what, because we're going to list all the students. Under 2 though, if you don't have brown eyes, where are we supposed to go according to this? Go to 3, right. And 3 says what? With blonde hair. So who in here has blonde hair? Paige. And who here does not have blonde hair? Would be everyone else, right? So as you can see, if we wanted to identify Paige out of this classroom, we could use this little key to identify Paige out of all the rest of you. Anyways, I give you a little half sheet of paper, and I just want you to jot down your ideas about these 2 questions on it. And then I'll collect them and see what you come up with. And the questions are, what is classification-wise important? And what is a tool that scientists use to identify organisms based on paired statements? So, I'll collect those from you. And so today we're going to be talking about taxonomic keys, because last class we went over a little introduction to classification. And I want to give you guys a tool for how to actually classify. So our objectives today are to create the taxonomic key and to understand how taxonomic keys are used with classification. So for a quick review from yesterday, we know that organisms are classified into 7 levels. Does anyone remember what these are? Paige?
Islands, or kingdoms, islands, classes, orders, families, genus, species.
That was good. A little mixed. Just remember the acronym King Philip came over for Great Spaghetti. And that should help you to remember that, but that was pretty good. Does anyone remember what the 3 domains are?
Prokaryotes, eukaryotes, and archaeans.
Perfect, you got all 3. And who knows what the 4 main kingdoms are under eukaryotes? Mammals. What is a mammal though?
Animal.
Animal, right? That's
Plants.
1.
Plants.
Focusing on
Fungus.
bacteria or
Bacteria. Right, we got them. So we know the characteristics of each of these groups based on yesterday. We did a little web quest exploring each of these kingdoms. But then with classification, you have to have a specific starting point. So does everyone here have a cell phone? Yeah, you should pull it out and look at your contacts. So how are you, let's say you're going to call your mom right now. You don't have her number memorized because you haven't been talking to your mother very much. But how would, how would you find a number in your contacts? How is it organized?
alphabetically.
Alphabetically, right. Now, if you were going to a grocery store and you wanted to find butter, which section of the store would you go to?
Dairy.
Dairy. Why would you go to dairy?
That's what butter is.
Where butter is, right. What else is in the dairy section?
Cheese.
Cheese? No. So these all must have something in common if they're in the same section, right? Classification pretty much helps us to find one specific thing in a big group very quickly. So, for example, music on your iPod is listed by genre or artist or track, and in chemistry you guys will learn about different elements on the periodic table and how they're all categorized here. And then in geology, like we just heard about, rocks are classified into different types as well based on characteristics. So why do biologists classify organisms? Well, the reason is if they need to find information about one specific animal or plant or fungi, they need to have a starting place, somewhere to start, especially if it's a new organism. So they're organized into groups based on characteristics they all have in common, which is the definition of classification. So if I were just to walk through a rainforest and see all of these different organisms, I'd have to have a starting point for how I want to describe them. Taxonomic key, on the other hand, is a series of paired statements that biologists can use to identify an organism. You look at this example we got animals, one of the kingdoms, and depending on whether or not they have red blood or not, we can go further down, we'll get more and more specific. So if they have red blood, it has to be a mammal, lizard, bird, or fish. If it doesn't have red blood, then there's two other characteristics we have to look at, and so on. They'll get more and more specific for what you want to find. So who can tell me how we would tell these aliens apart? Dusty?
Number of eyes.
Number of eyes, good. Anyone have another one?
Antenna?
Antenna? Right, so these are all different characteristics that we were looking at. We can classify them by their head shape, their body shape, number of eyes, hair, antenna, whether or not they have spots, etc. Now, NASA actually sent me, can you guys group up in these two tables, sorry. There's a book in the middle, and inside your book there should be a project description on what NASA wants you guys to do. So who wants to read the first paragraph for me on the project description? Anyone?
I'm not sure.
It's there's one of these inside your book. There's a packet of
For the first
Aha.
paragraph.
yeah.
Imagine it's the year 2525. The climate somewhere the Earth has recently, is that correct? Has recently been found in a newly identified solar system in another galaxy. We have sent a space probe with a molecular transport beam to this planet to feed back a variety of different living creatures. Scientists examine the structure of each of these creatures and realize that they need to create a dichotomous key and classification system to help them compare the alien life forms to each other and discover how they might communicate.
Okay, anyone want to read the second paragraph for me?
The lead scientist sends your team illustrations of the organisms and asks you to help develop this classification system. Your team's role is to study the illustrations and come up with a possible classification scheme and dichotomous key based on the information provided about each organism. You'll be asked to explain to the scientific team how and why you organize the creatures this way.
Right, so as you can see here, NASA found a new planet, sent back some organisms for us, and drew us some pretty primitive pictures, but there should be a stack of cards in each of those packets I gave you. And there's some directions on how you guys are to make a dichotomous key. And you can, actually groups are off, but break into two groups, and two of you will be responsible for classifying all of these aliens, and the other two will write a dichotomous key using their classification chart. So I would assume you all could do that really quickly. I don't know. You guys can start if you want. Maybe we'll just try for a couple minutes. Maybe just try and get down to one. Usually, but so a good way to start is to lay them all out on your table and group them by similarities.
What's the biggest difference? The head shape?
Yeah, I guess so. I was going to ask what this is.
let's do the easy one. One eye.
Oh, there is a one. Okay.
Blam, he's got one eye, it's number 12. Easy enough.
How about
Antenna, no antenna. Oh, I guess it's
How
ours.
we'll go?
That would be
Just
way
try
to
it.
see
Maybe
the
it's on
center.
Or whatever those things are.
Cool. We gotta start with today, and start with how many,
Do you have the,
oh, antenna, and then,
there's a sheet that has, where you can write them in, yeah, it's in there. Yeah, that helps a lot. I'll make sure they have that out too.
Spot is one. I guess, what is that? It's,
Huh?
okay.
okay.
Boom, you're done.
So I can let them do most of it. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, body shape. So that would be,
And then do, on the 2 eyes, do antenna, no antenna?
You're never gonna match all of them.
Right.
One of those has
I
to
would
be
do eyes because that leaves that one there, and I can use those, because then the spikes stay together.
And then,
Then do chest amp or whatever you call it.
We have to do the same size.
you know, you wanna do, yeah. So if you got, you got antenna, no antenna here, so on your 2 eyes, you got, take away the ones that don't have 2 eyes. And then and we've got the antennas already.
Because that's the, well, oh, spikes, and those spikes.
Yeah, you like facial hair,
Face-
I don't know.
facial hair. I wouldn't
So
do
it's
that.
the body shape, but that one's different. There you go.
You guys,
Awesome. Thanks, you're awesome.
yeah. Well, once you get down to the few, you can sketch out a little key. I think I have some hints on here. We'll do it.
And then, so how did you just,
So here's the reference page on page 20.
so it's.
I don't know how far you
What
can get.
next characters to do with that? When you put shape, or no?
No,
sorry,
eyes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
So
eyes,
there.
number of eyes.
And with eyes.
All right, so I'm gonna cut you guys a little short, sorry, but what we would do next is I'd take your guys' 2 keys and we could compare and contrast each other's and talk about what characteristics you decide to include where. And then I'd have you guys swap your keys you made with the other group, and using their classification system try and identify one of the aliens on there, because they're all numbered. You just give you a number, like you find 1 and you find 3 using their key, etc. So in review, taxonomic keys, which you guys just made, and it's a series of paired statements describe different physical characteristics of similarly grouped organisms in classification. And classification is used to identify organisms using this tool, which is the key. And this is important for biologists as well as other science areas, and making everyday life easier for us by allowing us to organize vast amounts of information we have in our world. So, and the assessment would be have you turn in your keys and charts and see what you guys did. Kind of just make sure you understood.